Welcome to another episode of the Thoughts on Purpose podcast. My name is Nash Mackey. I'm a rapid breakthrough and personal performance coach and a rapid transformation therapy practitioner. It's my absolute privilege to be here today, connecting you with our incredible guest. So today our guest is Kelly Smyth. Now, Kelly is a shaman, and I was really blessed to do some work with Kelly and actually go on what's called a spirit journey with Kelly. I'd heard about these experiences and I was very curious, and I chose to be open-minded about it. And Kelly has just got such a beautiful, caring heart. So Kelly, yes, she's a shaman and she supports her clients align to their highest potential through taking them on these incredible spirit journeys. Now, Kelly is trained with amazing shamanic practitioners such as Robert Moss, Sandra Ingerman, and Kelly supports one-on-one clients as well as groups in this incredible work that she delivers to the world. So I was very blessed to do this interview in person with Kelly. She actually dropped by my house and we were able to record this in person. So that was a lot of fun. And this is just to give you an idea of the kind of beautiful soul Kelly is. When she turned up, she brought me these beautiful mushrooms, these lion's mane mushrooms. And it was just a really beautiful experience. We had a cup of cacao, we sat down, cacao with mushroom in it, of course, sat down and had this beautiful conversation that was just so enriching. So I'm very excited to share this with you. Now, if you get value from this, do me a favor and share this out with people who you feel might benefit from it. This is a conversation that I wouldn't have been open-minded to a few years ago. So I was very grateful that Kelly guided me through this, this conversation, explain what she does so elegantly. And I can't tell you how much of an impact Kelly's having in so many people's lives. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's show and enjoy the session with Kelly Smyth. So Kelly, welcome to the Thoughts on Purpose podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here. I know this is going to be an awesome conversation. So it's great to have you here in the house.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, you're so welcome. So ladies and gents, I've personally had the privilege of working with Kelly. Kelly's actually taken me, it was called a spirit journey, is that correct?
Yeah, spirit journey.
Yeah, and what else did we do? There was some other part to that, wasn't there?
We just had a consultation, so a shamanic consultation, where I'm able to see for you beyond ordinary reality, help you navigate and bring some more information in.
Yeah.
Very,
very powerful. So the reason I remember I saw you on a podcast, another Tasmanian podcast, and then I was like, I've got to talk to this amazing woman. And we had a conversation. And it was when you were talking about how you work with the energy around people and you work on that energy field, because sometimes in I guess the physical reality, you'd call it, things can be hard to move, but you actually shift the energy, which is super
it's
cool.
like having a backstage pass. So you go behind the scenes to move things around a little bit. And that's where all of the orchestration happens, really. Everything happens in energy first and then matter later, because matter and the physical reality is so much slower. Energy is very fast.
Yeah, I love that.
So often when even if you're doing things like with your coaching and you're helping people visualize the reality they want to live, that's what helps bring it into manifestation, because that's the first part of the process.
Yes. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense, because I always say it begins, well, as we know, it begins with thought. Yeah. So that little idea, and thoughts are energy, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. There's been a lot of scientific research around that as well. And even if you go into the quantum fields, with like very advanced mathematics and science, they are finding more and more now, like they thought the atom was like the smallest energy, but then you take the atom apart and like you go deeper and it's like quarks, the original, like the base energy. And it is energy, it's like energy or electricity, and that's what everything's created from.
Yes.
So every single thing, the table, our clothes, our thoughts, they're actually all made from the same energy current. Yeah. And so you can change your reality around you using thoughts or moving energy. Yeah.
So powerful. And obviously this is a Thoughts on Purpose podcast. So it makes a lot of sense that I would talk to you, because like you're a master at this stuff. So you've talked to me about how you got into this work before we dive into, some more practical things. And I also want to talk about, just to plant the seeds of what's to come, how people can use or start working with energy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know if they can. Obviously, I'm aware of the thought side of things, but I'd love to hear from you Maybe every day people can start mucking around with energy, shifting a bit of energy in their life, especially in this time.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear just how you got into this work and
Yeah,
why this work.
I was looking for answers that I couldn't access through the physical reality. And it ended up being through meditation originally. So I did a weekend course for my 30th birthday, Transcendental Meditation.
Yeah, cool.
And I did that in Tasmania, where I was living in Queensland, but I came down for a holiday here.
Okay.
And the feeling I got when I did that course, it brought me to this place of such deep peace and understanding just by accessing that part of my mind and my thought process through using a mantra. And after a year of doing that practice every day, I was able to access deeper realms of myself that I had never been in contact with before.
Wow. And
then I started looking for more ways in to that. And I found a shamanic teacher named Sandra Ingerman, and she was doing a course, and she was primarily teaching the technique of the spirit journey, which is what I use.
Yes.
And then I also found another teacher, Robert Moss, and he teaches dream re-entry. So everybody has dreams at night, but not everybody remembers them. So he teaches you, first of all, how to remember your dreams. Second of all, how to access that part of your mind. So when you wake up in the morning, you kind of lose that. It's because it's a different part of your mind. And he teaches you how to access that in your waking hours. So because there's all of this information like in the subconscious.
Yes.
And he teaches you how to enter back into that information, how to access it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I really loved working with him and going into that dream state intentionally. And then that worked really cohesively with what I learned with Sandra Ingerman and the spirit journey. And the way they taught me to access that was using the drum beat. So the repetitive beat of a drum, it actually changes your brain waves into a theta state. So it allows you access to different areas of your mind. Because we use very little part of our mind, our brain. Yeah. We don't use much of it at all.
I've heard this.
Yeah.
Okay, so just on the dreams, I'm fascinated, like why, and we touched on this before, but why is it important for people to remember their dreams?
Well, it's a greater part of yourself. Like in your awake state, you have your human personality and your daily life, and that is like one facet of who you are.
Yeah.
But in your dream state, you can remember places you've been or times you've lived, if people believe in past lives, or it can be DNA memory through your ancestral line.
Interesting.
So you can remember more of who you are. And once you have those memories, you can integrate it into your life now. So strengths you've had, characteristics you've had, battles you've fought, or wins you've had, you can draw that memory back into yourself. So imagine like when you're training at the gym, all of that training leads you to have a better, stronger body.
Yes.
And when you're doing meditation, that leads your mind to have a more focused and dynamic mind.
Yeah.
Well, you can start to draw back parts of yourself that you've learned from in other lives, or your DNA history from your ancestors have learned.
Got it.
So it's a really invaluable resource.
I love that.
And it's just the dream state is just an access point to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Super interesting. So do you, in your experience, does your mind show you things kind of like sneakily? It's like, hey, you've got this available. It's like in a movie, it's like showing you all the different options of what movies you can see. It's like,
yeah. So in just ordinary dream state at night, the pieces that you remember from that, you kind of create a map for yourself to then intentionally go into. If there are things you're interested in, you've like seen something, remembered, it's like you find the door and you walk through the door and you see what you find there. And yeah, it's fascinating. It's like learning more about yourself.
It's super cool. I love that.
And then you start to like fall in love with yourself because you realize how like dynamic and multifaceted and like amazing and beyond what you realize you are. And it's kind of like meeting other people, but they're all just you.
Yeah, that is. I love the idea, and obviously we've done some of that work, and that was game changing for me. The conversation we had it's in my mind every single day now. Like I remember it, and I feel more powerful from that conversation because of what, like the information you
made me aware of. So I love this, and my intention through all the work I do is just to support people like be the fullest versions of themselves. So what you're saying is exactly that.
Yeah.
And in the past I was brought up a very strict Catholic family. I would have heard shaman. I would have been like, based on that conditioning. But I've just become so open to, and I've had everyone from pastors on my podcast to you name it. I've had so many incredible humans, and I just see so many options out there for people to access more of who they really are.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful work that you're doing, and it's just so transformational for people. And you offer such a depth to people's lives when they work with you as well. So I love that. It's music to my ears, really. So what would you say are some of the common misconceptions around the work you do?
Sometimes people can be a little bit afraid.
Yeah. What are they afraid of mainly?
Often I think people will be afraid that I will see something they don't want me to see. Or like people are quite protective of themselves.
Yes.
But the thing is, whenever I'm working with a person, it's only me working with other aspects of yourself or your higher self. So they're showing me what they want you to see. It's like you showing me what you want to see. So I'm just like translating the information. So I can never go where someone doesn't give me permission not to go.
And even if they don't say that, like that's an energetic thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an energetic thing. So like yourself is always protected by your higher self. I'll never be able to access anything that you don't want me to access on a high level.
Yeah.
And often people are afraid of change. So they will know what I tell them because they're telling it to themselves through me.
Yes.
Will create change, and they can be nervous about creating that change for themselves.
Okay. Amazing. So that makes a lot of sense. And I'm fascinated you use the term higher self. For people who might be hearing that maybe for the first time, or that sounds a little bit out there, like who is the higher self?
Yeah. Well, if you're not spiritually minded, when I'm referring to the higher self, I'm just referring to that part of your mind, the subconscious, that oversees everything you do in your ordinary life that you don't always have access to. It's like how you go to sleep at night and you will breathe and your heart will beat, because there is body intelligence, but there's also a mind and subconscious intelligence that helps operate all your systems. For people that are spiritually minded, they understand that there's your human personality, and then there are more advanced versions of yourself that are beyond the earth realm or beyond your physical body.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. I love that. What would you say is a conversation that you would love to have with more people that maybe you're not able to have with as many people as you'd like?
Yeah, I have this idea of something I'd like to do where it's just called truth sessions. There are lots of things people are afraid to talk about themselves, like they're ashamed, or they don't think anyone else has experienced that, or they feel alone, and it makes all these blockages. So I like the idea, and I've tried it out with some friends that I'm close to, and we just have these truth sessions, and it's amazing because you can kind of mirror off each other. It's kind of like confessions.
Okay.
Or something similar to that, where you're like, oh, there's this thing I've done or seen or felt that I don't really want to talk about. But when you talk about it and then someone else is like, oh my God, that's happened to me too, it creates this release and this relief. So that's something I'm interested in. I'm not sure how to navigate it yet, but it's definitely been brought to my attention. And it's just people trying to protect themselves. And with social media and these things today that are a really great way for people to connect, some people use them as a way to kind of create a mask for themselves and not really truthfully and honestly express who they are. But when people feel able to and safe to express their truth, they just bloom, and all of this debris falls off them, all this crust
Yes,
that
yes.
we've been hiding behind.
Yeah.
So I would love to create a safe space where people can be honest about who they are and what their dreams are and what they feel without that societal or cultural or whatever it is conditioning kind of restricting them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. I love that. And obviously in my coaching work, I do sessions where I'm supporting people, and so much of the work I find myself doing is helping people remember who they really are.
Yeah.
And I sense that you're doing the same thing. It's unlearning who you think that you are, who you're actually not, who you're pretending to be because you're trying to please other people or whatever else, and you actually remember who you are.
Yeah.
And I do that in this life, but what you're doing is actually helping people remember who they were in previous lives.
Yeah, because
which is really cool.
Often a person will, like, you have your personality, but you have like your soul blueprint, and people have a similar expression or purpose over different lifetimes or over different DNA files through their ancestors, you know. So it's very strong, and if you try to repress it or if you try to take a path that's not aligned to that, you get really blocked and people get very frustrated, and you get all these anxiety and insomnia and stress energy because it's all kind of congested in there.
Yes.
I'm always really interested when people are suffering that way, because I'm like, oh, it's actually your force, you know. You have all this energy and this charge that wants to come through. It needs a direction. So I love trying to help people unlock that.
Yeah. And would you agree, like I've heard that people say emotions, and this is my belief as well, like I've taken it on because it makes a lot of sense to me, but I'm curious to find out what you think, that your emotions are feedback, like they're letting you know if you're on path or off path.
Yeah.
And that sounds overly simplistic, but it makes sense to me. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
And I think it can feel complicated if you can't read the emotions, because if you're feeling stressed or you're feeling like pressured or like it's all very congestive, so you can't read your own signals.
Yes.
People have trouble reading their own signals that they're sending themselves. So sometimes I think that's why it becomes more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, well, that's one of the reasons I can work with you, even though I coach people every day and I'm around amazing people and I've worked with so many coaches. I wanted to work with you because it's like, I know I've got some blind spots. I can't see them no matter how much work I do, no matter how many books I read. There comes a point where you need other people in your corner who can see what you can't.
Yeah, and we all do that. We all get like assistants or allies, or, you know, can you have a look at this from another perspective so I can see the bigger picture? Yeah. It's really good to be able to do that too. We're really lucky in Tasmania. We have amazing people to work with. Yeah. Even in person.
I'm finding that out more and more. Like you were, I feel like I've got a lot more people to meet because I'm hearing about this, but it's kind of a new world to me. I sort of felt like I was the only one there at one stage, but I'm like, oh, there's more. It's really cool. I'm not the only crazy one. Which is awesome. I love that. I've got some notes here that I'm just trusting. We spoke about trusting my intuition more, so I'm trusting my intuition. The question I've got would be around, what do you think, why are people brought to the planet and put on Earth?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people are here playing out a story that's been going on for a long time, and they're just participating in the experience. And it can be beautiful or it can be ugly, but it's enriching them as a person, as a soul. And then other people are brought here for creating change, because the earth is evolving as each individual is evolving as well. And at the moment, we're at this like peak phase of this change in the earth's evolution. So there's a lot of friction.
Yes.
So some people have come here to be part of the change, and they can do that just by bringing their frequency here. Everybody has like an energy signature. Everybody has a unique energy signature that they bring to the earth. So there's this alchemy of all of the people on the planet now, all these energies coming together. And the souls that choose to come here to help with the Earth's evolution, it's like a really big mission, because it's not their normal cycle. They've kind of moved out of that cycle phase, and now they're coming back because they love the earth, and the earth is a beautiful being, and they want to assist the earth in this ascension or evolution process.
Yes.
So I see that happening, and I like to try and help work with those people, because it can be a struggle for them. They might feel like they don't belong here, or there's no one like them, or like they feel quite alienated often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, you mentioned to me, that's the real focus of your work now. You're going to support those people in particular.
Because they're usually working with other people, supporting other people, and they can feel like, they've got a lot of weight on their shoulders, and it's very heavy work, or it's tiring and draining.
Yeah.
I have leaders and light warriors, I call it, that focus on, I really want to kind of focus my attention on working with those people that need me the most.
Yes.
Because, I can help different people with different things, but I have very specific gifts that I feel like I should really focus them where they can do the biggest amount of change or help.
Yeah. I love that. I love that thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes so much sense. When you were 30, can I ask, and you felt called to go and move into meditation, because I sensed that you were seeking something.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. It was actually like one of those forks in the road, or a crossroad, because what I wanted to do for my 30th was go skydiving. And one of my friends was like freaking out and making it like really difficult, being like, you'll die, and like getting really worked up, and being to the point where I'm like, it's not really worth
talked you out of it.
Going through this just because of how stressed you are.
Yeah, got it.
So then I chose to do the Transcendental Meditation workshop. And yeah, it was one of those crossroads, and it was really, they did it with ritual and ceremony and practice, and they took you deeply through it, and they had a lot of support. And it's continuing, like the support you can keep doing, and you can keep attending groups, and but the thing was that I found amazing was, like, I had meditated before in yoga classes and different things, but it was sitting with the teacher who had the energy of the Maharishi who had brought Transcendental Meditation to the West. Sitting in her energy when I was meditating made it like 1,000 times stronger.
Interesting.
And then when I would go away and meditate by myself, it would be completely different. And that was like one of the first times I realized how other people's energy affects you so much. She was like a massive amplifier. So when I sat with her, I would go so deep and into such peace. And when I was practicing by myself, it was really fragmented and a bit scattered. And then so I'd come back and sit with her, and I'd be like, oh, wow.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. So how did they set up that energy? Like, what is it? Is the right terminology, an energy field, or how do they? She
just kind of radiated that energy out. So sitting with her, and when you're both meditating with the same intention or with the purpose.
Oh, so she was actually the instructor.
She would sit with me, yeah.
Okay, so I was getting the impression that she'd passed on, and somehow you would create. I was like, how does this work?
She's physically sitting with me.
Physically, okay, that makes sense.
That energy,
of
calm and peace.
That makes sense.
Maharishi has passed on, but he was one of the teachers that brought it. So in that way, it's kind of like he is behind her as well as her energy in person with me. Yeah.
Wow, makes a lot of sense. I love that.
Yeah.
I've done Transcendental Meditation. It was absolutely game changing. So I was doing the 2 20-minute sessions a day. Is that similar thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did that for a year consistently before I started learning the spirit journeys. And I'm quite sure the focus and the calm that I attained doing the Transcendental Meditation really made a difference learning the spirit journeys, because you have to be able to enter that state, like into the calm.
Yes.
And then begin. Otherwise, you could spend all the time trying to get yourself into the calm before you even get to where you're going.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So when you were a young lady, maybe 5, 6, did you think one day, I want to grow up and become a shaman?
No, but when I was little, I had an imaginary friend that I used to talk to.
Interesting.
And later, when I was learning about spirits and different realms and things, I'm like, oh yeah, children can see much more than we can. We kind of get very earthed in this physical reality, whereas kids are kind of a little bit open still, and their minds work differently. Their minds aren't fully developed, their brains aren't fully developed. So I realized that I always had that gift, like being able to interact with the spirit world. And the only way my parents or people really knew what that was like, oh, she has an imaginary friend. She's like talking to someone over there.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what was that for you? Like, do you remember what you saw?
Yeah. So he was just like my friend. His name was Tim. He was green.
Really?
I think he was an earth spirit or a plant spirit. But because like my parents weren't around that much, and I didn't have little brothers then. I did have brothers later, and I think when my brothers were born, then I spent time with them instead.
Got it.
So I was like very much off in the spirit realms as a little kid, talking with the spirits and being the earth. And then when my brothers were born, then I was with them. So.
Yeah. Wow. So for people who are listening to this and they're like, oh, this sounds really cool, I want to start moving energy and just trying to stop forcing things through physical effort.
Yeah.
What can they start doing?
I think visualization is a very powerful way of moving energy.
Yes.
Because your mind doesn't really know the difference between what you've visualized and what you see in the physical reality, because that's just the way your brain is. So if you can get good, and if you're not good at visualizing, you can make a vision board. Like you can find pictures of things that you want in your life. If it's like a beautiful house or somewhere nice to live or a job that you're looking for, if you put that on the vision board and you look at it every day, your mind starts to believe that's the reality and it starts to create it through energy.
Yes.
But I always like to visualize before I go to sleep, because then you're also moving into that dream state. So you have a more powerful platform to work with. Yep. So if you're visualizing your life the way you dream it to be, and then you go into the dream state, it helps like bring it in more powerfully.
Yes, I agree 1,000%. I support all my clients with visualization techniques, and the difference it makes is
it's amazing.
Night and day. Yeah, it's incredible.
I had this hilarious thing where sometimes it can misfire a little bit.
Okay.
So I put on my vision board a picture of the little cabin that my family have in Norway on the lake, because I wanted to go travel there.
Yes.
And then the next rental place I moved into looked identical to that cabin, and I was like, damn it. Too much on the building, not enough on the location. Yeah. So
I can resonate with that a lot. I've had very similar things happen. I was like, damn, I should have been more specific.
Yeah, I wasn't opening my mind to bigger potentials.
Yeah, I get that. Wow. Yes.
But it's kind of funny though, because you're like, okay, well, I can definitely see that works.
Yes.
My focus wasn't where it needed to be.
Yeah, I get it. But then also wherever you end up, it's exactly where you need to be. So there's kind of humor in the whole setup.
Very entertaining.
Yeah, I got it. I love that. One of my clients was asking that they were fascinated by this idea of, working with a shaman and doing all this, but they were asking, do you need to start to get the most out of a shamanic experience? That's the right term, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you need to start taking psychedelics yourself or doing anything like that to get the most out of the experience?
Some shamans are specifically plant medicine shamans, and they will use plant medicines for their clients to get them into that altered state. But I use the drum for my way of entering into that state. And I like that because it has a resonance that works with the client as well. So the client's listening to the drum beat while they're listening to my voice, and it allows their mind to enter that altered state as well, and allows all the information and the energy to go into their mind while it's in the theta state. And there's no risk of them having a reaction to plant medicines or having to deal with their expanded consciousness not coming back in integrated form. If you're working in that way, it really needs to be a much longer process, like being brought in, having fasting, having the experience being brought out, having a clean diet and integrating that back into your life. Whereas someone can come and see me for an hour and they can go from their ordinary life into the dream state and then back out into the ordinary life. Yeah.
That's why I loved what you did. It was just to the point. The drum was incredible when you made it yourself, which was really cool.
It's a beautiful drum.
Yeah, it is absolutely beautiful. So that's what I loved about it. And I've heard stories of clients who have gone down that path and they think they need to go and do all this plant medicine. They actually get lost. They like their whole life, and they end up very confused. And it serves a purpose for sure. And I know some people have done it incredibly well. Yeah. But
I think it has its place.
Definitely, without a doubt. Yeah.
I was going to try and take that avenue because I didn't know another avenue to take, and I was going to go to Peru and work with the ayahuasca.
Yes.
But then I almost immediately found another way, which was with the drum. And with that, I feel like they were also showing me you don't need to take another door because this one's open for you.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think working the way I do with the drum also makes you have to be very focused, and like plant medicine will just force you into the other realms.
Got it.
Whereas with the drum, you have to be with intention and purpose and focus, and you have to remain in that focused intention state during your life, not just like if you use a plant medicine, it's like pushing the door open.
Yeah.
But with the drum, it's kind of like gently opening it and gently closing it again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a different way.
Yeah. I like it. And I do hypnosis with my clients, which is another, obviously we have inductions and we use our voice, we use suggestions. So it's very similar work, but in a unique way. I love the idea of the drum, and I love the experience of it. It was incredibly, for me, having been hypnotized many times and having the experience, in the urn, because Kelly's got the beautiful urn. It was just as profound, like 1,000%.
Yeah.
And I guess it's doing the same thing, isn't it? It's putting the brain in that deeply suggestible and relaxed state.
Yeah.
And you're moving beyond, this reality, which is really amazing.
Yeah. So the drum and my voice helps me stay with my body while I'm also traveling. So like I step out of myself, but I remain with myself. It's kind of like a tether. The drum keeps me in that state, and I can check back in. So I can be like, checking in, the client's safe, everything's fine. Okay, I'm still out here. I'm doing this, gathering information, working in the other worlds. So I think it's just a great tool. And I have done it without the drum, and you can do it without the drum, but it doesn't feel as nice. Mm-hmm. It feels like hard work.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, so fascinating. I remember when I was young, I used to be really terrified of spirits or anything outside of like my little belief system. And a part of me still, it sort of has some hesitancy around, well, because I'm mindful that there are forces out there that do move into the dark, like dark forces. Yeah. And how do you separate the two, like between, because I know people open up these realms and they can, I've heard people speaking about opening up portals and like, what is that?
Yeah.
You feel like, what is this? Can you explain this world a little bit more, and dark forces and all this?
Sure. So because I learned with a teacher, they teach you practices of how to create a safe space for yourself when you're beginning, and to build on that as you go further and further out. So in the beginning, I would just practice with the drum and going out to meet a guide and coming back in. And then you would like stretch a little bit more, but it's always like you're creating an energy field where it's safe for you and going out. And when I was little, the same as having imaginary friends, I used to like slip into that state when I would go to sleep. And that's terrifying. If you're not creating a safe space for you to safely be anchored in your body and then going out intentionally, if you're just like kind of slipping into that other world reality, that is like a waking nightmare. So because really in different cultures or in different times, or if I had have grown up where my ancestors grown up, someone would have taught us when we were kids how to use these practices. But because we didn't have teachers, I had to eventually find a teacher. So it can be quite scary if you're not protected and you're not understanding of the potential of other energies, kind of just wanting to attach to you or wanting to access through you.
So how does that work? Like there's forces or energies out there that want to resurface and they look for ways to get back into the present moment. Is that how it works?
Well, it's kind of like the natural world. There are parasites like ticks and leeches and creatures like that that need to live off another being. Like they can't create their own food source or energy source. They have to leech it off another being. And it can be very different all the time. But most people, and pretty much everyone you would know, is connected directly to their own source light energy, and that is their life force. Some energies or some people have disconnected themselves from that in order to get power or in order to try to claim domain that doesn't belong to them. And then they need to hijack energy from other people because they're not getting it directly from source.
Wow.
So in life, when you're with people, it is the same as if you're outside of this reality. You always have to be mindful of who you bring into your home, who you bring into your space, and be mindful about boundaries.
Yes.
It's very similar when you're working in the spirit world as when you're working in the human world.
Yeah. That's fascinating. That was beautifully explained, by the way. I like that.
Yeah.
So parasites and ticks, that's kind of freaky, but a good metaphor. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to refer back to the earth and our natural reality because the earth's wisdom is just phenomenal and amazing and so in depth. Whenever I feel like I'm a bit lost or I'm a bit tired and worn out, I just look at the earth or sit with the earth and I watch nature. It's a permaculture principle, actually, just sitting with the earth and watching the birds and the animals and the moss and the grass and how everything interacts, and you'll just the answers will come.
I love that
much more clearly.
Am I right in understanding that you studied permaculture?
I studied horticulture and then floristry.
Okay.
So between before I became a shaman, I was always with the plants. And now I look back and it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Being surrounded by nature and working with earth.
I love that. You also have whenever I speak to you, you speak about even the patterns on your necklace you're wearing, what's the terminology? Is it geometry?
Sacred geometry.
Sacred geometry.
Yeah.
So you have a good, it's almost like a scientific understanding in a deeper, I don't know if it is a science, that's geometry, obviously.
It's nature as well as science and maths.
I guess so much science
because they're all
nature,
built off each other. So if you look at the bottom of a pine cone, it'll have a design in it the same as in a sunflower or in a rose unfolding, and that's a mathematical equation like pi. So once you start to see that very detailed mathematical equations are coming through in flowers and plants, you understand that reality is built in a way that actually makes a lot of sense. It has rules, there are boundaries, guidelines, science, maths, quantum physics. The earth is a very wise being that is creating within those guidelines.
Yeah.
So if you start to understand those guidelines and how energy works, then you can bloom into your most bountiful being within those same guidelines.
I love it.
Yeah.
Super cool. I don't know if you can share this, but what's been your most fascinating spirit journey?
Ooh, they go through phases. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, this is just information. And then I'll have one, I'll be like, oh wow, I can't even explain how amazing that was. There was one that was really beautiful a couple of years ago. And it was about a planet. The woman that came to me, she had been on a planet when it was destroyed. And then in this life, in this body, she had the same wounds of like the planet being destroyed, but it was like this amazing connection she had with the planet, and it was like a heartache, like she'd lost her home, and it was so beautiful, all of the imagery, and it made me understand the way we are with the earth, like how much the earth loves us and how much we love the earth, and that our body's part of the earth. And really they're my most fascinating ones, when the earth begins to tell you more about your body and what it's capable of, and the functionality and how it links to the earth. The meridian lines in your body are like the ley lines in the earth, and we're all really one organism. And you know, our blood is like the rivers, and it just keeps going deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow, it's amazing.
It is so amazing.
Yeah,
so cool. I believe in God. I find that's very empowering for me to have that belief, and it makes sense. And how do you perceive it? Like when you hear God, like what does that mean to you, and how do you perceive all that side of things?
Yeah, I find that people seem to have like belief templates, and often we'll be just using different language for the same energy.
Yes.
Like what I say, the universe, some people say source, but we're all talking about creator energy.
Exactly.
And so I don't feel any conflict with that. I don't mind the language difference. I love hearing different people's stories, and I really enjoy speaking to religious people, especially because they're very committed to their beliefs, and they're very strong in their focus. And I don't feel like I've had discrimination against me from people like that. We tend to talk on the same wavelengths and have the same kind of ethos. It's just language.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that approach. Like I totally agree. It's just this. We're all talking about the same thing. We've just got a different name for it, or a different label.
Yeah.
And it's just what makes sense to the individual. And I don't identify as religious. I identify as spiritual. So that's why I see what you're doing is one of the most spiritual things, as spiritual as a pastor, because you're enriching people's lives. You're giving people a more full experience, which, you know, God would want anyone to have. Like that's what we're here for. We're here to be all that we're meant to be.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Yeah.
Do you believe everyone on earth has a purpose?
Yes, I do. Very strongly, I believe that.
Yeah.
But I also have learnt and seen that people have the potential to be within their purpose at different levels. So if they're suffering and struggling, like they can be in their purpose, but at a limited capacity. And if they're very open and abundant and blessed in their life, they can be meeting their purpose at a really high level. So it allows people to have a purpose, which is like destiny or fate, but also have their will or their, you know, ability to change their life unhindered as well. So it's not like a cage. If you have a purpose, it's up to you what potential you take it to, not that it's like going to,
it's not
drive you down a certain path. Yeah. So
I like that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I would totally agree. So you would also say that people have the opportunity to step into that more and actually experience and create as much as they're willing to pursue. Like that would be the way I'd put it.
So I think that they will be in it whether they like it or not. It's their purpose. But it's up to them how far they take that and how much they lean into it or pursue it. Yeah. And it feels like, you know, when people are like in their purpose and they're moving through it, like it just feels so aligned. It's like everything just lines up for them. So it can happen nicely. And when people are fighting against it, they still like are on it and it's still happening, but they're just like struggling through it all and like not wanting to participate.
Absolutely. It's like trying to get a tree that's designed to grow in a particular location, like expecting to grow in a different location. It's just not going to happen. It's got to be the right environment. So I agree 1,000%. What would be like something that for the times we're navigating right now, where, like you said before, this is a real pivotal time on Earth and a real transitional time, what would be some advice that you would give people right now to navigate these uncertain times and to really stay in their power?
Yeah. I keep hearing people saying, I have no choice. I have to do this. And I would like to tell people that is actually your choice. If you're saying, I have no choice, I have to do this, that is the choice you've made, because you've chosen not to look at other options or find other avenues because that might be too hard. So just own it.
Got it. That's good.
If you're feeling cornered and you're saying you have no choice, just own that choice.
Yeah.
Otherwise, be honest with yourself and say that you do have options and look at those other options, because it's getting sick of hearing it. Like, I have no choice. I'm like, well, I can sit here and lay out 10 or 20 different options for you, and you're going to sit there and fire them off as why each one isn't viable.
Yeah.
But then you're not being honest. If you say you don't have a choice, how can I lay out all these options?
Yeah. So they've already made their choice.
Yeah. So they've made their choice. So I feel like people need to be honest with themselves in these times.
Yes.
And stop saying they have no choice.
Stop saying you've got no choice. Start visualizing.
Start finding other pathways.
Yes.
And often, like, if people say that something's not possible, all it means, or if someone's told you something's not possible, all it means is they can't see a way. True. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd agree 1,000%.
So I don't know if that's advice or criticism.
I think it's both. It's exactly what people need. I've been really encouraging people to move from just worrying about what's present right now and move into creation. Like, what would you love to see on the other side of this? And while I personally believe it's important for me, like, my path is to educate people to a degree. You shared something great with me, Kelly. You mentioned about how people will find the information and I don't need to be too consumed in sharing it, even though I do still get consumed in sharing, because I'm like, I want people to know this.
Yeah, you can still be an avenue for people to find it.
I genuinely feel like that's my path to a degree. But I'm also mindful to always then move into creation and possibility. Okay, this is present, but it's not like I always frame it from it's happening for our greatest good. It's happening for our evolution, our next level.
Yeah.
So that's how I approach it. I think that, what did you say to me about, you were sharing how, you said it so well. You said people will find the information.
Yeah.
And you don't have to feel like you have to always be sharing.
I said that the same information that's available to you is available to all those people. If they haven't found it, it's because they don't want to see it.
Yes.
And if you're sharing it to people that don't want to see it, they still won't see it.
That's so true. It's so true.
So you putting it out there gives people an avenue to find it that are looking for it. But if people aren't willing to look, which is the same thing as saying there's no options, they just won't see it.
Yeah.
So just have to allow those people to not see it.
Yes. And be okay.
Don't get caught up on it.
1,000%. Yeah.
But that's sort of why I'm also like, I really want to focus on helping and supporting the people that need it the most. They're the people that are working on themselves, and they're like, I understand there are pressures and there are restrictions and my life isn't going the direction I had planned because the world's changed now, but I'm going to create new avenues. I'm going to create new pathways. I'm going to create other options, because those people then create templates and platforms for others to follow.
Yes.
Whereas if you're with a client or with a friend or someone who's like, there's no option, and you're laying all the options out, and they're just like, no, none of those are options.
Yeah.
You're just like you have amazing big energy that you can give to people who are willing to receive it. But if people are not willing to receive it, it's just a dead end, and it's like a waste of your energy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting how people they'll actually, I'm not sure if they pop up as tests.
Yeah.
But like, I had a guy reach out to me recently. He's like, I really need a coach for next year. He's like, but I know what you believe in. He's like, so you're not the coach for me. I was like, no worries, it's fine.
Strange.
Yeah, it was like, but then he kept going. He's like, then my grandma died. He's like, but I really need a coach, but you're not the coach for me because you believe this and this and this.
Oh,
and I was like, no worries, have a good Christmas. And you kept coming back, and I was like, okay, I'm going to shut this energy out. It's going to block you.
Yeah, I definitely believe that there's interference energy. I've been experiencing that a bit lately with just my life. And I'm like, I'm doing this and this and this and this. And then people look at me and go, well, you can't do that because of this, or you can't do that because of this, and you can't do that because of this. And all these blocks. And I'm like, well, I'm just gonna do that. And you just like push through it. Like if you're sure where you're going, people can't really interfere with it. But that is some of that kind of distraction, difference energy. And you usually get it when you're like in the expansion phase, because it creates friction for people around you.
Got it.
When you're expanding, you're actually expanding your energy field, and it like rattles or creates friction for people around you.
Interesting.
The change affects them as well.
Interesting.
And so then you get these people like, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that.
Yeah,
and you just like
that.
clear that away.
Yes.
Like, I'm doing it.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a beautiful way to describe, because I often share with my clients, when you take this new action, be mindful things will pop up.
Yeah.
And I call them tests,
Yeah.
like to test your commitment to your decision or your path.
Yeah. And it does solidify your focus when something comes up and says, you can't do that. And you're like, yes, I can.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, yeah, I can. It gives you that strength.
It absolutely does.
Little test. Yeah.
1,000%. So I asked this question to all of my guests. I'm sure you've heard it because you listened to my podcast before. I don't know if you've listened right to the end, or if you've got 5 minutes in, you're like, in terms of. But either way, I always ask my guests if you could share a 1-minute message with all of the world, and you got access to all of the social media platforms right now, and you could just speak to the hearts and minds of people.
Yeah.
What would you share? What would be your message to the world right now in this time?
I would say that the most important advice and information you can get is from yourself. Intuition, receiving knowledge from yourself is the best way forward, because you deeply know within the truth of yourself and the truth of your path and the truth of who you are and what you're here to bring. People are often, and like with your coaching, what you're doing is helping people tap into that.
Yes.
People are often like getting advice here and there and there and there and there and there and there, and trying to follow someone else's path, and it's not their own path.
Yeah.
So tuning into yourself and your truth will guide you to where you're meant to be. And I think everybody needs to bring it back to that now, because there's so much information and there's so many complicated things going on around us, that if you just take a moment and you tune back into your heart center and into yourself and into your internal compass, like your inner guidance, I think that will help us all move forward if we're receiving information from within about where we're meant to be and where we're going forward. And then we can all share that inner guidance. Like, this is what I know my truth to be, and this is where I'm going. You can share that with other people and help support them as well.
I love that. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful message. And that's definitely something you've supported me with, like tuning into my own intuition, trusting myself more. And it's freeing. It's freeing, and it feels like less resistance in life, which is what we all want, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
We always want like more freedom. We want more ease. And while I don't encourage anyone to pursue ease, like, because that's an interesting path.
That just gets you on the circus
does.
wheel.
Yeah, it does. But I always say pursue challenges that inspire you, and then that seems to make life and work, and you experience ease as a byproduct. But I think that's just so vital. And would you say to listen to that intuition more?
Yeah.
I remember you mentioned cleansing as well, things like that. Is that important?
So even with your diet and everything, you can do detoxing. I found for myself, I had to change the way I was eating, because I was eating foods that were inflammatory, and it means you can't think properly. If you can't think properly, you can't tune into your intuition.
Got it.
So clean body, clean mind, much easier to ground into your intuition and into your inner knowing. But there's a lot of these little traps in society where, you'll know what is right for you, but then all these little other things come in from outside. So that's also about having boundaries and creating, that strength of your intuition and your inner guidance and that trust in it. And every time you trust it and you take action on it, it will fortify your understanding of how valuable it is. And every time you don't trust it and then something goes wrong, that can also help you as well.
Yeah.
Because you'll be like, oh yeah, I should have listened to my intuition.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of I know some people that like write down, this is the guidance I got. And then like take a little diary note on how things progressed when you went forwards with that.
Mm-hmm.
Or have some way of recording it and remembering so you can build up that strength of understanding.
Yes. Very, very powerful. So would the practice be after a meditation, like come out of that and focus on?
Often people will have their way of accessing the intuition, meditating, or just putting your feet on the ground and being in nature, because that clears your energy fields. Grounding is a great way of doing it if you don't have much time. And meditating is another great way of doing that. Just brings you back to your natural state. And when you're in your natural state, you're able to listen to your body and listen to your heart and listen to your guidance. When you're in a busy and frantic state, that's not a good time to make decisions. Yeah. Because you can't hear the inner guidance in that state. So true. So true. Well, the guy, my full name's Ignatius. I'm sure people know that on the podcast now. Ignatius. Exactly. That's me. Yeah. And Saint Ignatius, who was named after. I remember my mum telling this when I was a kid. She was like, he always used to say, never make decisions when you're too high or too low. Like always come back to a place of saying. When I was a little kid, my mum used to tell me that, and that's stuck with me. And now some of the best teachers I know, such as yourself even, you're saying, make sure you're grounding. You're not making decisions from this frantic. Yeah, it just doesn't work. It doesn't. No. And I think that's just so incredibly important. Kelly, how can people connect with you, and how do people, do you do sessions online as well? Is that something flexible? Oh, you do? Cool. I do distance journeys, so people overseas or in other places can connect me that way. Cool. So it's calandral.com. Yes. And on the website, there's information I've written up about my personal experiences, and there are recordings of group guided journeys. And also, people can read lots of lovely feedback I've had from clients, and there's just lots of content. You just have a good time on there. I love that. Delving into it all. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Super cool. And social media. I know social media is an interesting thing nowadays, but you're currently on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. Yeah. They blocked my content for a little while. They do that occasionally, and then it comes back, and you're like, all good again. Okay. What's your name on Instagram? It's just @Calandral. Okay, and wherever you're watching this will be links below, so let's go check those out. I'm just so grateful for the work you're doing. I really am, and it's added a great dimension to my life getting to meet you. So beautiful. Thank you for everything you're doing. And Kelly was kind enough to bring me a box of mushrooms when she came over today. So I'm gonna lion's mane, fluffy, so good. Gorgeous. Can't wait to get into it. Thanks so much for being here. No problem. Thank you.